Buy my novel, Escape from the Village, from major booksellers online. Go to escapevillage.com. Subscribe to my Substack. Go to fountainheadforum.substack.com. Thank you. Welcome to the Party Pal. This is Fountainhead Forum 134. I have Ááron Sepúlveda-Cué. He's a economics professor at South Texas College. He lives down near the border with Texas, and we're going to talk about the rise of Javier Milei in Argentina, his recent victory in the presidential election. Yes, this is our 25th show talking about Milei, and this has now been the second show since the Milei victory, so we're having our second victory party. How are you, Ááron?
I'm having a party. Precisely.
Yeah, we're having a party. That's exactly right. We're having a party on Saturday morning. We're going to talk about. So
I went to Argentina last week, so I was literally enjoying the electricity and all of the environment previous to the victory.
It's Saturday, November 25th. When did you leave?
Let me make sure I get this right. I was a speaker in a Bitcoin conference in November the 9th, if I'm correct.
Oh, yeah. Oh, you were at the Latin American Bitcoin conference. Yeah.
Correct.
How was that?
It was excellent. The Argentinians have a ridiculous amount of talent. So everything they tried is going to look amazing. Everything. But also, since they have so much talent, the talent can be used for good and for evil. So if they use it for evil, it's going to be incredible evil. And if they use it for good, it's going to be incredible good. And that's precisely why I love Milei, because you're literally seeing the talent, the amazing talent Argentinians have, and now it's going to be used for libertarianism. Yeah. So that's why it's amazing.
Yeah, that kind of conflicted with the Adopting Bitcoin conference in El Salvador, which I ended up going to. I was sort of debating, maybe I'll go to this instead. I'm kind of wish El Salvador was great, but I kind of wish I'd went to it too. It's a shame they were. Well, the dates on the conference in El Salvador were the 7th to the 9th, so you can see where there was a slight conflict. They weren't. I mean,
I had friends that went to both. Some guys from Spain that are very into Bitcoin, they prefer the trip to go to both. But that's a Latin American thing that we're like.
But you're going to miss part of you have to miss part of one or the other. But yes. So anyway, yeah. By the way, there was one guy on the speakers list named Carlos Maslatone.
Yes.
What can you do? This guy has put out a bunch of crazy tweets about Milei. What is the deal?
He's insane. That's it.
With this guy, I mean, he's
just insane. Like literally, there's nothing important or meaningful that he. Mira, let's speak a little bit of economics, okay? And you're gonna love this one. For example, Lunatic Coin is a very important podcaster in the Spanish-speaking world about Bitcoin, okay?
Yeah, Lunatic Coin. I've seen him. He followed me.
Oh yeah, he's amazing. You want to do work with him? He's amazing. Very serious. Loves scholarship. He loves teaching to the masses, and he likes to learn very advanced stuff. He's never afraid of learning and saying, "I don't know, can you explain it?" Like, he's amazing. So, he's so good that he's getting along with Maslaton. Okay, they're interacting and whatever, and then Lunatic Coin asked, "How is it possible that anyone in Argentina can vote for Massa after 140 inflation rate under his supervision? He's the Secretary of the Economy. How is that even possible that anyone's going to vote for him?" Obviously, as you and I know, Massa spent about 2% of the GDP of Argentina just on buying votes. Like, that's straight up. But let's go with it. So Mazaton switches the top when Lunatic Coin asked that question. Mazaton switches the topic and says, well, it's because inflation is not everything. And that's correct to a degree. Obviously, there's more to life than inflation. But then again, 140% inflation? Do you see how he switched the topic completely out of proportion? Because one thing is to say, inflation is not the ultimate problem or is not the only thing that matters. I agree with it. But think about the proportions. He just skips, it's kind of like just empty rhetoric. All he has is empty rhetoric. If you actually start analyzing whatever he says, is just empty rhetoric. He just thinks that sound nice, but that's about it.
Yeah,
So,
there's yeah.
and let me finish the econ. He said, for example, here in Argentina, we have full employment. That's true. Almost everyone has a job, but everyone has a job because their wages cannot ever catch up to inflation. That's why everyone has to work all the time at every minute. They need to get like a welfare because it's just insane. Obviously, now think about this. If you need full employment, why would you need 140% inflation when, at least technically speaking, on the Keynesian worldview, with 1 or 2% inflation is more than enough? Let's say four, and we're going over the top. 140, like there's no proportion. But you see, the guy's just trying to pull out random arguments, even if they're empty, just to try to oppose Milei. As far as I understand, Mazatón was inside of Libertad Avanza, the party of Milei, and it looks like Milei kicked him out. I'm not 100% sure, but
Yeah.
that's what it looks like. So don't pay attention to anything he says. He's just crying right now. He has very bad economics, and he has a different plan, as far as you can see from afar, than what Milei wants to do. He wants to keep Peronism in power and say, let's use Peronism. And what we're saying are like, no, that's exactly the problem, because you're going to keep Peronism for the left. As soon as
Yeah.
you use Peronism for the right, then in 4 years, they're going to come back. Actually, the whole point of dollarization, and this is why the whole thing's amazing. It's not gonna be as shiny as we wish, and it's not gonna be as fun as it sounds. But doing dollarization is super important, because that means the next time the left comes into power, they cannot destroy the economy. They can make a mess. They can even default on their debt anyway, which they have done before, with or without dollarization. But for example, in Ecuador, they went through hyperinflation, they dollarized, the left came back to power, and instead of having again a hyperinflation, you still have a very stable 1-2% inflation.
Yeah.
Obviously, for you and I, we wish it was better, but 1 or 2% is much better than, and even 9% that we had on 2022 in the United States. That's better than 140. You know what I mean? So
Oh yeah.
this,
Yeah. Yeah.
this is
Yeah.
the key.
Even
That's
yeah.
why we
Even
want to dollarize.
yeah. Lower inflation is almost always although higher inflation does inspire people to go out and do possibly make serious changes at least. Yes. And also also and the other thing too is I don't know. No, I wonder if we should at least take a look at some of these other people that I've seen that have been criticizing Milei.
Mhm.
Antonella Marti also, since we got into Mazatone.
Yeah, well, she criticized Millet, and she and another guy wrote an article against Millet. Uh,
Yeah,
it's completely empty. It's just
yeah,
what happens. Okay, she is different from Masterton, because she will be more like what you and I would consider a left libertarian, or a
yeah, yes.
something around there. You know what I mean?
Well,
Uh,
and for some of these people, abortion is absolutely positively a sacred cow.
yes, there you go. You got the
This is one thing I've noticed. The libertarians who want to outlaw abortion can at least say, well, I can see why a libertarian would go either way, but the pro-abortion libertarians are absolutely in this attitude. If you believe that it's wrong to kill this baby, you're not a libertarian. I mean, there's very few of the pro-abortion libertarians who think they're absolutely that this cannot even be debated.
Yeah. No, I mean that.
Yeah,
I don't know if you know this, but Milei was criticizing what you and I will consider left libertarians, because one of their leaders, Gloria Alvarez, debated one of the sort of right libertarians, with Uri Laje. I don't know if you're familiar with him.
who
And Milei openly said,
was that? You said
Agustin Laje
how do you
debated
spell that?
Agustin. You know how to spell that one?
No, I don't know. How do you spell that one?
Agustin.
AG.
Agustin. Okay.
Okay.
Last name, capital Laje. Agustin Laje.
Augustine Laje. Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
He was
okay, yeah,
he was a big supporter of Milei. And then in an interview, Milei, when they were discussing abortion, he said, "Oh yeah, just go and watch Lajes and Alvarez and Gloria Alvarez
yeah,
debate." Uh, Laje completely destroyed her in the
yeah,
abortion debate,
yeah.
and from
Augustine.
there, a lot of the sort of left libertarians did not like him at all because on national TV he said that the left, the pro-abortion, had lost the debate and the pro-life libertarians had won the
Yeah,
debate. And they hit it with, but this is the
yeah,
issue. They don't have they don't have the popular, I mean, they have a lot of followers in social media, but that does not translate. Like Twitter is not the election, you know what I mean?
oh, yes,
And so that it did not affect, think about this, it did not affect him at all to the point that he broke the record in Argentina in a democratic election of the amount of votes and the percentage of votes that he got out of it. So yeah, they discovered that they have no influence in the electorate. They have influence in their friends, but that's about it.
yeah.
And that's what I
And there's
notice a
also,
lot inside of the Libertarian Party. Most people think of the way we're gonna grow the Libertarian movement is, and this happens on the right, on the left, is if I make happy my friends. If I convince my friend that I'm not a Republican in reality, I think we're gonna grow. And because they have that mindset, anything that could uh that could cause, let me see, anything that could cause their friends to think that these left libertarians are more like Republicans in
yes,
reality, or whatever it is, they immediately going to take it as a sacred cow. You cannot
yes,
give up on this. You can give up on a lot of things, but this one,
yeah,
this is my image. This is my image before my friends. And what's the problem with that? Is that my friends do not represent the electorate. I mean, that's just the reality. Really, everyone has
yeah,
to understand. Like honestly, even if you get every single person in my family and among my friends, they do not represent the
yeah.
rest of the electorate necessarily. Like literally, that's just crazy to think that the electorate is gonna look
I
anywhere similar to your friends and family.
I think one reason why I've always been very careful about not wanting to, and by emphasizing that libertarianism is a third way, is that conservatives in America have been so there are so many people in the conservative movement who claim to be capitalists, but they're actually huge advocates of corporate welfare. And I really do think the corporate welfare people are much more destructive to cap. They give capitalism a bad name, and I think they do capitalism much more harm than outright socialists do.
To a
Uh,
degree, yes.
and I think a lot of I think a lot of the great injustices in markets and in economics are caused by various forms of corporate welfare. Inflation really is a type of corporate welfare as well. Or
Chris,
in this case,
Chris,
it benefits the ruling caste and hurts the common people.
uh,
So that's huge for me. Is that I want to distance ourselves from the people who advocate for corporate welfare, and sometimes a lot of corporate welfare people masquerade as being sincere friends of the free market, and they're not.
yeah, they're not.
There's another guy out there too. I don't know if you want to talk about this guy, Jose Benegas.
Jose Venegas will be similar to,
Yeah,
what's the name of this girl? Of I forget their names. Her name is what do we say about the other girl?
we're talking about Antonella Marti.
Yeah, if I'm right,
Yeah,
if it's the one that I think it is, he wrote up an
yeah,
article against Milei together with her, right? That's the one you
yeah, I
have in mind?
believe he did. Yeah, yeah, I believe he did. And then also there's also another guy. There's a guy in Spain named Juan Pina. He's really been on Milei too. I don't know why, but
For real?
yeah,
Wow. Yeah, because he's like that also. Like whenever he describes libertarianism, he talks about like cultural stuff and all that.
yeah,
That's the best way to see it is right libertarians are thin libertarians and left libertarians are
yeah.
sort of cultural libertarians. And there I disagree completely. I don't think libertarianism could ever be a cultural movement, nor it should be. It will be just taken
I don't.
out of its proper place.
I don't think so either. But it is interesting, because I think you have to. I think a libertarian culture will lend itself to a culture of individual responsibility. But I've also noticed that if you have these systems that completely disrupt the family, it's not going to, because when the family withers away, the state takes over
There's no
inevitably.
way out of it
Yeah,
necessarily. Even extended families, I would say, because even the nuclear family can easily get into problems, and then the state comes as a savior. But extended families, that's almost, if we
yeah,
have strong extended families, honestly, the state is useless, literally, for anybody. Even if you're
yeah,
poor, since you have, if you have extended family, you have so much human connection that
yeah,
thinking about the state's gonna come and save me is not even in their minds. So usually you're gonna notice that large extended families do prevent. Actually, one of my best friends, Jonathan Klingen, he's descendant of American missionaries in Mexico, but he's a Mexican. So his family is blue, is bilingual. He has 12 kids, and he moved.
yeah,
He lives in Monterrey, where I was raised, Monterrey, Mexico. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
yeah.
And he moved
I
he
know
moved to
of it.
the outskirts. Yeah, he moved to the outskirts. He has space, and he told his kids, "Look, there's a lot of us. We're not wealthy. I just bought this large, how to say, this large ranch, so you guys have space to run and all that. But we can't afford fancy stuff. Okay, just be ready. There's not gonna be fancy vacations or anything like that. It's just gonna be the 14 of us. 12 kids and 12 kids, his wife, him, and then almost everybody has a dog. So it's literally it's big.
Oh
It's a big
yeah,
family. It's a big family. But think
yeah,
about this: they're so close together that why would they ever need the state to give them welfare or take care of them if they take care among each other? And there's like 12 of them. They're gonna take care of among each other. That kind of mechanics, it's something that I want for society, and I think libertarianism would flourish there. It's kind of like, a lot of people don't like for me to say it, but think about Singapore. It was like cultural conservatism plus some type of neoliberal
yeah,
mechanics. It was like supercharged. They're more wealthy than Americans right now. They were less wealthy than Mexicans in the 60s.
yeah,
Now they're more wealthy than Americans themselves in per capita terms.
yeah,
So it does not mean that we're gonna impose conservative values. If people don't want that's what cities are for. Like,
yeah,
when you have a big city, you don't have a big family, you move to a big city, and you have what we call economies of scale. Life is actually, sometimes, whether we notice it or not, it's a little bit more manageable in a big city for individuals, not for families.
yeah,
So that's fine. That's not a problem. The problem is to think, no, 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 no. We're gonna have to impose individualism as a cultural attitude, and that's a different story. One thing is political individualism, methodological individualism. When we have a war, it's not U.S. against whatever. It's certain politicians sending certain soldiers to kill certain people. That's
yeah,
methodological individualism, which is very different than saying, therefore, we should celebrate when people get high, we should celebrate when people do porn, we should celebrate everything. That's
yeah,
like, no, like those two are completely divorced from each other. um, they probably don't affect each other. They're just not part of the same set,
yeah.
and we have to separate them.
The other thing too, though, the way Americans now have done urbanization and the way things are, it's completely broken down. I mean, you'll have people sending back emails to each other instead of where they might be two offices apart, or you know the replacement of actual conversations with just sending text messages back and forth and other things like this. And I mean, uh, and not to mention the the fact that so many big cities and even more suburbs are not, they've made them so they made everything in America so unwalkable. uh
That's a biggie. It is very economical, and this is
yeah,
I was trying to answer an article by some of my conservative friends,
yeah,
against, I'm kidding you not, um they were using the movie A Wonderful Life
yes,
as point of reference for how decadence came along. and they were talking and they were talking about how, because there were some suburbs, right, in that movie,
Some what in
where
that
they built.
movie?
Yeah, in the movie there's there's a part, there's like a neighborhood outside in the suburbs, uh and then they
Yeah,
criticize that because, oh, it's not walkable. But okay, the economics of it should be
yeah.
easy. The problem
Right.
is that we need to have as affordable as
That was
possible house.
that was in It's a Wonderful Life.
Yeah, that's why that article is interesting, because it goes into a lot of
Yeah.
details. Like,
What
for example,
the
one
movie
detail that
with Jimmy? The movie we're talking about, the movie with Jimmy Stewart and Lionel Barrymore.
yes,
Okay.
it's a good movie that you can discuss a lot of
Yeah.
details. It's interesting. I think it's an exaggerated, but they're bringing some good points. If you were in the town, you can walk everywhere you wanted
Yeah.
and go and talk to people and all that. You cannot do that in the suburbs outside.
Yeah.
That's it. It's
Yeah.
simple as that. That's just the way it goes.
One thing that happened with the small towns is they were built in the era of horses and walking, and so uh, grids are the best way to make a walkable neighborhood. They're really the best for everything. But there's
Grids.
been this grid. Well, streets, streets go like, streets go across like a checkerboard.
Okay.
Where streets would be like that, and you'd have these blocks that were basically squares, and it would be very easy to walk around, very easy to drive around, very easy to ride your horse around.
Okay.
And now all the neighborhoods are just kind of a mess where streets are just put every which way. There's no real pattern or system to them, and they're not really walkable. They're not really that good for cars either.
Not even for cars.
You know, and they're definitely not, because you inevitably make walks between, you can't go, you can't make the walk as short as possible. You have to navigate only where the streets are and all that stuff. But
My
yeah,
my view on that one,
yeah,
I don't know if it's exactly what you have in mind, but my view on that one is that what we have, what you were complaining about, sort of like corporate or crony capitalism.
yeah,
I,
crony
I just
capitalism, yes,
I just call it mercantilism, and I think
yeah,
it
mercantilism,
it
yes,
just it just encompasses everything that we're
yeah,
discussing. It pretty much takes over. Now, what I think happened, it's something similar that was happened to banking in the 1800s. We tend to say decentralization without freedom. Sometimes it can happen, sadly so, right? I mean, we like decentralization, but sometimes. So, for example, in the
yeah,
1800s, the problem we had with banking is that banks were not allowed to create more than one office. Literally, every bank had to be one building by law. And so that created tremendous, since money is a network good, that created a lot of problems because whatever the banks will give you
yeah,
as your banknote could not be worth the same outside of the
mm.
city, simply because they didn't have an office over there so that people would know them. So there was big this. It was a mess.
This
Well,
was in America,
this was in American 1800s,
yeah,
and one of the reasons was because locally, a lot of people didn't want banks to grow a lot. But what was the problem is that made Wall Street super powerful, because they
yeah,
were the only ones that could be big and have what we call economies of scale. So it was almost impossible since ever into the 90s. It was
yeah,
impossible to compete against Wall Street, because Wall Street, those guys, because they were not commercial banks, they were allowed to grow.
yeah,
And so even Wall Street itself was pushing so that so that commercial
yeah,
banks would not be allowed to expand. Now, what happens now with housing and I think also with the way that neighborhoods are built? My view is that right now at the local level, there's a huge property owner, like house owners, the ones that already have a house, they want to protect the value, at least monetary value, of
yes,
their property, and they're gonna push to make life hell on earth for anyone that wants to
yeah,
produce so as to drop prices. And that's what they've been doing. And that one, we cannot blame it on the left,
yeah.
maybe not even on the right. It's just problems at the local level. At the local level, we have very bad incentives. That's
Yeah,
it.
and one thing I will point out too, about banks, in the 1880s, almost all most banking regulation was still done at the state level. So it didn't
Yes.
come out of Washington D.C. It came out of Austin. It came out of Harrisburg. It came out of Columbus. It
Yep.
came out of Carson City. It came out of Topeka. So that's important. So yeah, but that is an interesting point. I can remember when banks, where all the banks were small. There were no big banks. Yeah. So
Into the 90s. They
yeah,
still had only one office. That's it.
yeah, that was that was something, but you were talking about It's a Wonderful Life, though. That really does capture a different era in America. I mean, can you imagine, though, all these, at the end of the movie, we're giving away the ending, but toward the end of the movie, all these people come together and bring all this money to George Bailey's house.
Mm-hmm.
And it was all organized via the telephone, landline telephones. And, there was no GoFundMe. There was no give, send, go. There was no, all these people started going around collecting money. And it was just so, and all these people come around and I don't think you would ever see something like that. I don't know if you'd see that happen in small town America now or not. But
if you don't see what, let me make sure I got
see
this right.
Something like what happened with George Bailey happened in small town America, where
that they know each other so well and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
That's
where this man needs help and everybody just shows up at his house on Christmas Eve and brings money.
Yeah, people that he has developed a bond. Usually,
Yeah.
I don't like how to say it, to listen to national conservatives. But there was one thing I learned from one national conservative, which was the notion of bonding. What his complaint about immigration, for example, wasn't really immigration per se, but it says if it's too fast, there's no time for bonding. So we need to find, and I think that's what the market does, because the market does is usually immigration. What really does is I come from a poor area, I go work seasonally to wealthy areas, and then I come back. That was the most common thing in the world. Actually, Reagan had that. He said, "Why don't we actually create a huge program, bracero program, with Mexicans, where they can come just seasonally?"
Yeah.
And for most Mexicans, that's heaven, because they really don't want to leave. They just need resources to to support their families. And that's something that I think needs to be applied to almost everything. Is that we need the time and circumstances so that we can develop bonding. And what you're discussing is the fact that he had, at least in the movie, right? He had the time period that it was long enough for them to bond, so that they don't mind helping out someone that they have bond so much with, because it's a long-term relationship. Is what happened in the past, what is happening right now, and what they expect in the future, because they expect that friendship and him to continue to be an important part of the community. So the bonds are so strong that there's literally there's not even need for FDIC. The one that helps out is usually the community. Actually, how if you think about it, how he was trying to convince everyone, guys, look, we're in trouble right now. Don't sell. If you guys sell, then all of the resources are gonna belong to the fat guy, whomever the name of that guy was.
Potter. Yeah.
But if you have to know them to tell them, guys, look, the bank owes you. We can't pay you right now because we're in an emergency. Can you guys just postpone? Which is usually what I thought in COVID, during the COVID era, the 2020. My position was, guys, it's okay to postpone. It's not paying your debts. Let's just postpone it for a couple of months, because we don't know what's going to happen. So the proper thing to do is your landlord should postpone your rent, but also the bank should postpone charging the landlord, and then the debtors of the bank should postpone doing that. If we were all going to do that, it's fine, as long as everybody kind of coordinates each other, right? But you can only do that when you have a bond with people. When you don't have it, when they're strangers, everyone's pulling everywhere because people don't know each other. That's why national politics is so dangerous, because you get ever bigger groups of strangers that do not know and cannot understand the other side, and there's going to be conflicts happening necessarily, because how different the worldviews are.
Aaron, this is one reason why, and we went totally off topic here, but this is one reason why. When my mother was a poll worker for so many years. And
a what?
She worked a poll worker, worked for election day.
Oh, I got you.
Working the polls, and there was no vote. Nobody asked for ID because everybody knew who everybody was.
Exactly.
And that's ultimately how it's supposed to be. Yes. You have small voting precincts and everybody knows who everybody is, and there's no need to ask for ID. And now everybody's screaming and shouting about voter ID, which personally,
because nobody knows each other.
Yeah. But anyway, let's get back to Milei here. So you were down there for the Latin American Bitcoin conference, and it sounds like I assume the attitude, first of all, toward the Bitcoiners generally seem to be very happy about Milei.
Yes.
Is that the general mood there? Yeah. How big
Yes.
was the conference, by the way? How many people were there?
That's a very good question. I mean, people that went, because it was I don't know if it was like 3 or 4 days. We usually
Yeah.
do the calculation that is well above 1,000. It can even make it all the way to 8,000
Okay, so
going.
it was that big. Yeah. Okay, that's good. Yeah. Yeah.
Now, in the presentations, I
Yeah.
cannot. I mean, it was a big precinct, so it was like
Yeah.
the auditorium was big, but I cannot tell you how big. I mean, the total number,
Yeah.
but for sure it
Yeah.
was way more than 100. Like literally, just way more than
Yeah.
100.
And I know
So
I
it
know
was
I
really
know
good.
the longtime Austrian economist Lawrence White was there, and we had some other people
Amen.
there who were
Yeah.
Lawrence
Yeah.
White was there, who was an American, and we had some other people there. Yeah, it was I don't know. It
Ne-
looked like to
next
me
year,
also.
next year we're gonna take hopefully so Bob Murphy and some other Bitcoiners from the United States. We're
Uh,
gonna make it big and big and big and big.
oh yeah, yeah. It sounds like it's something I should try to go to next time if
I
it's
would recommend it if you can.
it's the schedule.
Seriously, the Bitcoiners that went to both, they were the happiest ones because they had
Well,
all
as
these
I said,
stories.
they were not. Well, again, if you go to both, if you try to go to both, you're not going to get the whole thing of both of them. I mean,
Yeah, yeah,
there was an overlap. I mean, the dates published were 7th to 9th and 9th to 12th, and of
yeah, yeah,
course,
yeah,
you've got a full day of flying to go between the cities. It's
yeah, 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 yeah. It was
yeah,
impossible, but what I'm telling you is it was a lot of fun.
yeah,
I mean, the simple things that I recommend. Why, even if you don't care about the Millet, which you should,
yeah,
Argentina is a great place to visit. Like Buenos Aires, when you go to the nice places, um, it truly is kind of like Spanish speaking. The architecture is it's very European like. It's the closest you get to a European city without having to go to
yeah.
Europe. And the
I've
food
heard
is
it.
amazing.
I've heard it several times described as Paris on steroids.
Yeah, more fun. I would say that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Someone said Paris without French people. So imagine that would be pretty much that would be amazing.
Yeah, well, I've heard the same thing said about Prague too, though Paris without the French people. But yes,
Which one? Prague? Oh, Prague.
Prague,
Yeah,
Prague,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah. I haven't
Vienna
been
is
that well
close.
traveled, but yeah, it's a
Vienna is
and
close, but I think Prague is.
really. I've also learned though too, and we're starting to drift again, but it's not the French people that are rude; it's just the people in Paris that are rude. But if you go
Yes, that's what I know. I know
if
that
you
for
go
sure.
outside of Paris, and I think in a lot of big cities they're just sick and tired of having to deal with tourists all the time. You know, they but anyway, yeah. So yeah, so
Okay, going
Milei,
back to Argentina.
so there was the mood at the conference pretty optimistic about the election. I mean, the election happened on the 19th, so the conference was about a little more than a week before the election. But
It
and
truly was a how to
yeah,
say a roller coaster
yeah, and
because
then
he won the first round. It was
yeah,
like 3 rounds, if I'm right. The
yeah,
first round he won big time.
yeah,
Second round he lost, and that brought down the
yeah,
mood.
yeah,
But I think it helped everyone take it a little more serious. I think
yeah,
it was actually helpful.
yeah,
And then, but everyone was everyone was cautious. That's how we'll call it.
yeah,
Everyone was very excited, but very cautious because we saw that, oh wait, you can win big and then you can lose on the next one for whatever the reason it is, cheating and whatever you want. It is possible that he would lose, but then the general election comes along. 2 million votes difference. No cheating
yeah,
was gonna get rid of that. No cheating was gonna 50 was it like 57 against 40, 43 something ended up being that
yeah,
that difference is just gigantic. Like there's no way that they no as much cheating as they wanted to do. Uh, it was just it became
yeah.
impossible.
Yeah, and it looks like they have this very strange electoral system, which I'm probably going to talk about with somebody else. But literally, like there's the Millet ballot, there's the Massa ballot,
Yes,
and you turn in and it's just and a lot of times it's just like you get one piece of paper and it's like two names and you'll just mark an X next to the person you want, or you'll punch a hole next to the person you want, or nowadays with more electronic voting,
I
it's
think this one's better. I think the
yeah.
Argentinian way is actually better.
But I don't understand. But I don't understand this whole thing about having a Millet ballot and a Massa ballot. It seems like you should just have one ballot and mark with
It,
both names, and then just mark an X by it.
it's better so that there's no confusion between what you mark and what you didn't mark. I think that's why they do it that way. And so imagine instead of ballot,
Yeah,
just call it like tickets. And they imagine that you get in and they give you two or three
Yeah.
tickets, right, with the options, and you leave aside the ones that you don't want, and you put in the one that you like, and that's it, and
Yeah.
that counts as your vote. So I think it's easier. It's just weird because we never done that, but I think it has to do with the fact that people were complaining like, no, that wasn't really Mark, whatever. So people didn't want to struggle with us. No, just give them a ticket. The ticket that they return you, that's the one that counts. The other one goes away. And it seems to work. And it was real fast, which was very interesting. I think that also helps counting fast. I'm not completely sure. Maybe. Because it's pretty obvious what the vote is, because they're giving you the big, how to say, the big flyer that says I'm voting for this. Like
Yeah, I
nothing
was,
other.
I have to admit, when they announced the results, I was like, the results are out already. I kind of like didn't believe it. I said, I took this attitude. Okay, I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait about maybe 6 hours before I say anything officially, because we've gotten used to elections going longer here in America too, though. But
2-3 days after and whatever.
yeah, it's. Well, the American media also tends to call these elections way too soon, and I think this is one of the problem with journalism now is everybody wants to, it's like it's a race now to get the story out first, as opposed to getting the story out correctly.
Denzel Washington said,
Yeah.
everybody wants to be first. They don't care
Yeah.
about being right.
Yeah.
And there's no way out of it. The clicks come to the first one, not to the correct one.
Yeah.
So.
This was impressive though too, and also there was also the Bullrich endorsement, which I think how much do you think the Bullrich endorsement was a big factor too? Do you think you would have done without that or not?
Easily 20 percentage points, thanks to Bullrich, and that's what we like her. I mean, no matter what she did in the past, she had the guts to say, set aside my feelings, set aside what you said to me. It doesn't matter. We need to beat Peronism. We need to bring it down. And they did.
There definitely seems to be an attitude. And I think also nowadays too, I think some people might have walked into this election with the attitude, look, I don't know anything about this Milei guy and I don't care, but I know we're going in the wrong direction and we've got to change. I don't know how much of the vote was that, but just, if we vote Massa in, we're going to get more of the same.
Exactly. No.
And they said it's like, gets to this point where anything is better. It's,
mm-hmm.
and I don't know.
And on top of that, Milei's famous. So that helps a lot.
And I don't know about you, but Massa just creeps me out. He looks like he just looks like some kind of, I don't know what.
That's the most common Latin American politician. Every single country in Latin America has a weird guy like that. He's very similar to the one that is prime minister in Spain. Those guys are kind of like they have no ideology. They just kind of join the party that can a little more easily put them in power, and little by little they start bringing down one enemy inside of the party. Boom, another enemy. Like literally, little by little, another enemy, and then finally they make it all the way to the election. And he was about to bring down Milei. It's just that we got lucky that we responded very strongly. But he's a very common type of Latin American politician. It's very normal.
Yeah,
we have them in Mexico, we have them in El Salvador, so on and so forth. Not strange.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's also there's a and the turnout was 76%, and also Milei won every province. Or there are three provinces that Milei did not win. He did not win Buenos Aires, which of course is a huge one, but it was only a slim loss there, like 50 to like 51-49. He lost the province of Formosa, pretty sizable margin. He also lost Santiago del Estero. He lost that by a big margin, but that was a small. These were all smaller provinces. Also telling, Milei did very well in the province of Cordoba, which he got 74% there. Which, of course, I don't know if this was significant or not, but that was the province. Juan Schiaretti was the governor of Cordoba, who was running in the election. And I remember thinking, he was the only guy. He was the only other candidate I kind of liked during those debates.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I thought this is a guy that I think Milei could work with because I knew, but
he can work with anybody. This is the thing. He's pragmatic enough that he works with absolutely anybody. Like people that he trashed because they did a terrible job, in a couple of years ago. He brought them back in to say, okay, you're gonna do this specific thing. You're not gonna do multiple
Yeah.
things because you don't know what you're doing. But the one thing that you know how to do, go ahead and do it. But just don't mess
Yeah.
up again. So he's flexible enough, and this is the issue that all libertarians have to understand. One way or the other, we have to be flexible when it comes to
Yeah.
implementation. Our ideals are great. When we're young, we read about this stuff, we get excited about it, that's great. But once you come to implementation, like I usually say this, look, things are not gonna privatize themselves. I really want roads to be private so people only pay when they use them, but I can't do it if I'm not in power. Like the only way that I'm going to privatize a road is if I am in if I have a government position and I privatize it. There's no other way out of it. Parks that are super important for a local community. Well, you want to
Yes.
privatize it, great. How are we going to do that? Well, the only thing is that you literally have to be in a government position so that you can sell it and privatize it. There's no way out of it. Like we can't be getting like, oh, but he's hanging out with the wrong people. We're like, okay, dude, we need to win first, and we'll figure it out later. And this is why Peronism is so it's so powerful. I would even say these same patterns, you can see them in every single country in Latin America. What they do is they create electoral networks. It doesn't matter what you
Yeah.
believe. What matters is that you vote for them. Okay. Once you vote for them and they win, they split the budget, but
Yeah.
they're not ideological. They just want to win. That's why they're flexible, which is kind of interesting, right? Sometimes certain parents will be very left wing, and then another one will be a little more like Massa. Massa was, I mean, relative to the United States, he's very left wing, but relative to Argentina, Massa was kind of right, like center right or center. Like the hardcore leftists, they were society are tired of them completely in Argentina
Yeah.
because they had a lot of power a couple of years
Mhm.
ago, and they were just making society almost unlivable, literally just unlivable. And then everyone started moving away, and that's why if you notice, Milei, Bullrich, and even Massa, they all consider to the right of most lefties. Like most leftists in Argentina see them as a bunch of right wingers. That tells you that people were tired already of left wing
Yeah.
ideology in Argentina, and so Peronists usually say, okay, we can't win with the left wing, so they went to the guy that was a little more to the right, so he could battle against. That's how they are, and because they're pragmatic like that, that's where they win. That's
You
it.
know, there's something else that happens too. Is I think there sometimes does come to a period where even the truest of the true believers start to have doubts, and maybe that's happening with the Peronistas. Maybe I mean, some, no doubt some of them are just crooks and charlatans, but some of them who might have been really sincere about it are now just saying this doesn't work. I, and and I don't know, but there's definitely been I think the world has went through a lot of political soul searching during the last 3.5 years
Oh, Chris,
with
you
this
might.
with the not just in Argentina, but with this insanity over the coronavirus craziness
it,
and
it
other
seems
things.
it seems that parents imposed the longest lockdown
Yeah,
in the world. I don't know exactly what the
yeah,
details were, but people were complaining that it was like crazy. Like in the United States, we
yeah,
complain, but
yeah,
lockdown, it was only 2 months, if I'm right.
yeah.
And then the rest was just being careful with this, being careful with that. And big cities like LA and New York, they have their
Oh
own
yeah,
universe, so we don't care. But in Argentina, it was almost the entire country was locked down for a very long time. It wasn't 2 months,
yeah,
like the entire country. And so people also, little by little started moving away from Peronism because it was just stopping all human, all human. You
you
just
know,
imagine for Latin Americans that we're very social, and now they were telling us, no, 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 you have to stay home for like a whole year or some crazy thing like
yeah.
that.
I
Latin
I
Americans are gonna say, no way, we're not going.
I don't know
We're not
how in the
going.
world anybody could have thought this was ever a good idea. And and to his credit, during the last debate with Massa, Milei said that toward the end of the debate, and I said, I'm so glad he mentioned this because a lot of in America they're just trying to act like it never happened. And this is one small criticism I will have of Milei. Daniel Ortega did not buy into any of this stuff, so as far as I'm concerned, Milei should invite Ortega to the inauguration. I know
Oh,
Ortega's a communist, but at least Ortega rejected this nonsense. So I'd say send him an invite.
yeah, there's some good ones. Yeah, he's
Yeah,
willing to talk to people,
yeah,
so
yeah.
it wouldn't be
I,
strange.
yeah, I mean, Ortega became better than a lot of these alleged Democrats in Latin America, as far as I'm concerned, just because he said we can't do this. He realized people have to work. They can't
So
stay home.
that's why it's so meaningful and so interesting, the Argentinian case, because it was almost the entire nation that was forced into this. For example, in Brazil and Mexico, it was decentralized.
Yeah,
Then the national government was like, there's no way
yeah,
that I can impose the same policies in
yeah,
a high density city with a low density town. Like you just
yeah,
can't have that. So everyone did independently. More than
yeah,
likely, they didn't lock down. They were just telling you, can you please stay home, please
yeah,
stay home, please stay home. But they would not force you to close your
yeah,
business and all that kind of stuff.
yeah.
In Brazil, it got so interesting that they even did, you know what? Stay open, just keep low density in your business. And if you need to, open 24/7 so that when a lot of people come along, you tell them, can you guys please come back later? But they try not to close precisely because most Latin American workers cannot survive. There's no way they have enough resources to stay home a
Yeah,
whole month doing nothing. So like, there's no way that that was going to work.
yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah, Mexico is still pretty decentralized as far as I know. It's not really. I mean, and one thing I've noticed though about some of these countries in South and Central America is the nation's capital tends to be a very dominant city among in the country.
yeah,
I mean, you have about 45 million people in Argentina, and about 20 million of them live in or around Buenos Aires. Uh, so it's already in some cases, a very centralized country. We don't have any city, for a city in America, a metropolitan area in America to have that kind of dominance, it would have to be, it would have to be at least 150 million people in that metro area, and we don't have anything like that in America.
we used to complain because there's a lot of centralization in Mexico City.
Yeah.
They used to make a joke. Mexico City is like having LA and New York together, and maybe half of Dallas
Yes.
together.
Yes.
So it was very insane. Now, in other Latin American countries, I just didn't know until later on that I figured out
Yes.
that's not uncommon at all, like Buenos
Yes.
Aires, right? But
And
it's a little bit more spread out. What I did like about Buenos
yeah.
Aires is that Mexico City, the problem is there's so many people. It's not just that they're centralizing power, even people live very close to each other. In Buenos Aires, you're gonna see a little more, not too much,
Oh
but a
yeah.
little more spread out, kind of like
Yes.
more density, but kind of like Dallas, that is real big, but it's super spread out.
Yeah.
Not so much, but somewhere around there. Like it's less dense, if I'm correct, is less dense than New York for sure.
That is interesting. Comparing Mexico City to Los Angeles, New York, and a little bit of Dallas.
Yeah.
And yet up until recently, they still tried to make it with just one airport. But
No, that's insane. Okay, yeah,
yeah, I know. I tell people what the airport in Mexico City like. They said you can tell this city needed a new airport a long time ago. But anyway,
like 30 years ago, we knew they needed
yeah, you knew. Yeah, it's an airport that's clearly outlived its. But anyway, so yeah, boy, that's very very interesting. The other thing too is I'm finding also that there's definitely a history of looking up, Juan Bautista Alberti, the
yeah.
man who wrote the Argentine Constitution, and there was actually I saw a video of Ronald Reagan quoting him. I said, "Wow,
Albert is amazing. Albert
that
is
that
amazing.
is that showed a knowledge that I never imagined Reagan would have. Although somebody must have given that to him, but
More
uh,
than likely, yes.
yeah." I wish Reagan had been. I wish Reagan had done more than because I think he ended up doing more harm than good for the cause of freedom. I hope
You
Milei.
think so?
Yeah, he did. I think because of
You might be right. I'm not sure.
people associate that with free markets, and really the worst thing Reagan is at least indirectly responsible for is thanks to him we ended up with 12 years of the Bushes.
Okay, repeat that. I need to understand that.
We ended up with 12 years of the Bushes.
Oh, after him.
Yeah.
That's such a good question. Like, did
I
Reagan
mean,
set up
Bush.
the stage
Reagan
for
was
those guys?
extremely popular, and Bush rode into the White House on his coattails,
Mhm.
and then his son did. 8 years later.
Can I share something with you about
Sure,
Alberti?
yeah.
Give me 1 second. It's one of my favorite ones. Give me a sec.
Yeah.
I shared when I saw it. I was like, I need to share that. I work for the Libertarian Christian Institute, and I am the director of the Libertarian Christian Institute Latino because I'm Spanish speaker.
Yes.
And so we have our Spanish speaking account. Share screen. Let me make sure if I get this.
Yes.
Give me 1 second. Hopefully.
Yeah. That is cool looking. This picture of Messi holding up the trophy in the background behind you. It seems appropriate for this time. We ought to have everybody who comes on should have that picture in the background.
I know. Yeah, exactly. There you go.
Has Messi said anything about this, or is he just smart enough he's smart enough not to say anything about politics? He's an athlete.
Yeah,
he's got a good deal.
Super smart.
So this way everybody loves him. Yeah. As soon as he comments on politics, it's over. And he knows when people watch soccer, they don't want to think about politics.
There you go. He figured, and he's not interested on any of that.
Yeah, like, Aaron, there is something I've been talking about. This is a pet cause of mine. I want all those Venezuelan immigrants to go to Argentina and turn it into a baseball country.
Okay, sir. I need to tell you that you're wrong on that.
Okay.
Because I do not like baseball. That's the only sport I don't like. I'm joking around. Don't worry about it. Yeah, but they did. And I don't know if you know that, but they actually. Oh, sorry about that. Let me put in.
We have a bunch of yes. Yes, one bit. Tista Alberti. Yes.
There you go. There is no human freedom where our society, life, and property are at the mercy of the whim of a politician. That's Alberti. Amazing guy.
No hay libertad para el hombre donde su seguridad, su vida y sus bienes están a merced del capricho de un mandatorio. Yes.
There you go.
That was a nice quote. Yes, I know Milei was some of his influences are Jesus Huerta de Soto, I believe, and
mine too.
And Alberto Venegas Lich is also a big one.
Yes, there you go.
Some good economists, who have both. I'd both love to have them on there. Anybody who's taught Milei, it'd be awesome to have them on here.
If you can, try to reach out to them. Sometimes Huerta de Soto is more difficult. Because he likes to keep he likes his I forgot his students to be active, but he said no, it's better for me to not be active, and that's fine because we learn from him. If you want to see, Huerta de Soto has this, his political ideas, anarcho-capitalism, has a Hayekian bent. I don't know if you know that there's a little difference between Hayekians and Rothbardian or something like that.
Yeah, there are some differences.
Say it again.
There are some differences.
Yeah, he said, I don't care about your differences. I'm here in Spain. I'm going to do whatever I want. And he said, I'm going to get the best of Rothbard and the best of Hayek, and I'm going to make a mix. If you don't like it, so be it. And so we like him a lot and that's why you see most Latin American Austrians, including Milei, we mix around like crazy. We don't get like, oh, no, not this, not that one. No. We read everything. If you remember Milei in national TV, mentioning my favorite economist, Robert Murphy, because he's very well read, mentioning Rothbard, mentioning Hayek. Remember that there's a little quote where he says, Hayek, por favor, kind of like claiming for help from Hayek, because Huerta de Soto, although I disagree with him on banking, we'll discuss that later on if you want to. He was the first one to say, no, I'm going to learn from I'm going to take the best out of every single Austrian, and I'm going to create some type of synthesis, and that's where we're going to go. And I think that has made, at least among academics, a very healthy environment where we agree and disagree very openly without much of a problem. And among Spanish-speaking Austrian economists. And some philosophers, by the way. We even have philosophers. Zanotti is one of the best Austrian philosophers. Probably the best one, if you ask me. The best Austrian philosopher. And he's from Argentina also. Gabriel Zanotti. Highly recommended if you get to get in contact with him.
Austrian philosopher. Yes.
Gabriel Zanotti.
Zanotti?
Zanotti with a Z. Z-A.
Oh yeah, Zanotti. I think I've heard of him. Yeah, Zanotti. Sando Zanotti.
Yeah, there's nothing of him in English. I think I posted it there in the private chat.
Yeah,
But
there's
if
some.
you ever
Yeah.
grab something that you can learn from him, he
Oh
has
yeah, Gabriel Zanotti. I think I've
yeah
heard his name before in all my conversations. Yeah, there's. Yeah.
he has a 9 lecture series on epistemology, the theory of
Yeah.
knowledge from a Austrian perspective. The amount
Okay.
of learning that you do with that guy is endless. I'm kidding you not.
Yeah.
Endless. Just crazy, crazy how much you learn from that guy.
Where
So
do
we
you?
do have a very healthy relationship over
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. It's very interesting. Where do you think these guys go? Where this show being called Fountainhead Forum, you can obviously tell there's an influence there by another certain philosopher, a libertarian
Mhm.
philosopher who I've seen. Apparently, Milei has quoted her, but I'm
Quote who?
curious where,
I
where
don't
the
know. Sorry.
Ayn Rand,
Oh yeah. Oh, that's a good
where
question. I never
where
heard
are the
him.
differences? Where are the differences in these epistemologies, and what kind of epistemology is necessary to have a free society?
Yeah, I don't think
Yeah,
Gabriel talks about that, but I do understand what you mean.
yeah. I'm a little troubled because there seems to be a growing trend of some libertarians or libertarian leaning people rejecting the values of the Enlightenment, and I find that extremely troubling. I don't believe we can have liberty without the values of the Enlightenment.
Can you give me an example? Because sounds pretty interesting.
Uh
If you can.
well, some of the libertarians who are going over to there's been a movement of some of them going over to Orthodox Christianity, which I don't know that much about, but it seems to be
Oh, okay.
a ca-
Among libertarians.
yeah. This is this has been a real. I mean, the last 3 years have been a shakeup for the liberty movement and a shakeup for a lot of libertarians. I think a lot of libertarians have changed their outlook somewhat about after all this. The biggest change I think is before there were there was this attitude of everybody's a libertarian, they just don't know it yet, and now there's an attitude where
Nobody's a libertarian.
everybody's an authoritarian, they just don't know it yet. Uh,
I like that. That's a good analysis, sir.
The separatist, there's certainly a lot more growth of what I would call the libertarian separatist movements. I mean, we just need to separate ourselves and create our libertarian utopia, and who cares about the rest of them? I mean, whether the Free State Project in New Hampshire or Monte Libero in Europe, or wonder if this might happen with El Salvador. El Salvador could become the Hispanic Free State Project.
I don't
You know,
think it will, just so you know. I mean,
yeah,
I'm not that
yeah,
friendly. I'm not
yeah,
really fond of Bukele. We can
yeah,
discuss that later if you want to. Bukele is not Milei, not even
yeah.
close. Just
I do worry. I do worry about that. Bukele really did come down hard, and some of these people were arrested without trials, and it seems to be a arrest people and we'll ask questions later. But I also wonder, if there was how else do you clean up the mess? I don't know if there was a way. Yeah,
in that specific topic, I don't get involved because you
yeah,
need to be on the ground to understand. Literally,
oh yeah,
that's why from
yeah,
afar, I'm like, dude, that I'm against in other topics. His level of debt is high. Bitcoin was made compulsory, but in reality, what it did end up happening was what became compulsory, what became mandatory was to accept Chivo wallet balance, which is, if you ask me, that's just printing dollars. They're trying to create their how
yeah,
to say, I call it fiscal dollars, and that's why I'm like, ooh. And if you notice, and a lot of Salvadoran economists agree with me, that what he was doing was, since nobody wanted to refinance his debt, it was, so the interest rates were huge, 13 and above. He literally had to go to the crypto markets and use Bitcoin just so as to try to find if he could get some type of financing from the crypto markets, because nobody wanted to finance him in the open market. Now, that does not mean that everything he has done is wrong. Please, you know, I'm super more
yeah,
cautious with Bukele than with Milei. With
yeah,
Milei, I'm hopeful because he's one of us. That's it, straight out,
yeah,
literally. As you
yeah,
said,
yeah.
he's a Huerta de Soto, how to say, student,
Well,
which is
yeah,
very different than Bukele.
yeah. Bukele's not, and Bukele hasn't read these fat economics books, although he's hanging out with Saifedean Ammous, which I think is a positive thing. But uh, yeah, I do. Yeah, yeah, I know, that's interesting. I've not heard this perspective on Bukele, but yeah, it's a, yeah,
Yeah, no, he's popular and all that. I
Oh, he's
understand he's
extremely
popular.
popular. Yes, I think
So
he's extremely popular because
I'm not.
The Salvadorians who are there, they feel safe walking down the street right now too. And
That's
there
priceless.
was also a tweet where somebody was out at a McDonald's, and it's like, is that the president and his family out here? I mean, isn't it amazing? Regardless of my feelings about, we would have a more libertarian society if the presidents were that accessible. If the
That's a good
presidents
question.
went out and ate at McDonald's instead of living in this completely sheltered world where they have bodyguards standing around them all the time.
That's a good question. I don't know, but
Yeah,
the
but
point
yeah,
is that
so
at least he's active, I guess.
yeah, but I mean, but if he, I mean, the president, I mean, a lot of American governors aren't even that approachable. I mean,
No,
that
not
they're
at all.
going out and taking,
Maybe some majors,
yeah,
maybe.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, so that's very interesting. Yeah,
No, and another one, by the way, El Salvador, if I understand correctly, is like 5 million people in total.
yeah, it's a
So
much smaller country. Yes,
it's like a big city. I mean,
yeah,
at least from the government point of view, it's like you're in charge of a big city. You're not
yeah.
in
There are
charge
more
of.
people in Buenos Aires than there are in El Salvador.
There you go. You said that right.
The interesting thing about El Salvador is also that is a 100% international airport because El Salvador is so small. I mean,
Oh, there you go.
yeah,
There's no way that you have
you
another
don't
one
fly from the San Salvador airport to another airport in El Salvador. You only fly to airports
from
outside
there.
the country because it's the Buenos Aires airport. You can fly to all these other cities in Argentina. And of course, Buenos Aires has two airports. But yeah,
If I remember correctly, someone told me that Milei was when they created the existing airport, he
yeah,
was the one in charge of the economics of it. He was in charge of the economics of the development.
the
He used to work for
economics
that.
of the airport.
Yeah, like finances and all that. He was in
Oh
charge of
yeah,
all
yeah.
that,
Well,
the whole process.
that's a major undertaking too. To
Yes.
build an airport, it's not
Yeah.
cheap. Yeah,
He's whatever you want to say about his odd how to say personality,
yeah,
bombastic personality. He's an
yeah.
efficient an efficient worker.
Aaron, this is something too, though, that I think Milei's personality. This is a guy who made himself cool, and a lot of libertarians in America do not come off as being cool.
Nor they try.
I mean, Milei seems like a guy who, if he goes and hangs out with the jocks, he'll be popular. If he goes and hangs out with the punks, he'll be popular. If he maybe goes and hangs out with the hippies, he'll be popular. And if he just goes out and hangs out with the beautiful people, he's going to be popular.
He knows how to fit in.
Yeah, he's figured this out, and we desperately need libertarians in America who are like that. And I don't, and it sounds like to me, these are people that are made really before they're even political. It's, he got on TV. I mean, you said you discovered Milei in 2018.
Probably before, but yeah, usually that's
Yeah.
the time.
That he was doing TV appearances before he got into politics, so he kind of developed some fame on TV.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, he's utilized the internet, but he's gotten out there. But he's really made himself.
You want to know the story?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, tell the story. We always happy to hear the story.
Direct story from people around him directly.
Yeah.
One of my friends, Agustin, he's a director of one of the Progreso y Libertad, a think tank, libertarian think tank over there. He told me this story. Libertarians were invited, let's say pre-2018, probably even before. Libertarians were invited to talk shows, okay, on TV, national TV.
Yes.
In Argentina, reading books, magazines, listening to radio, and watching political discussions on TV is very common. Even in sports talk shows, people still talk about politics, whether they notice it or not. Me personally, one of the reasons why I know a lot about Argentina is because every single summer, when I follow the World Cup, the Copa America, whatever happens, soccer worldwide, I listen to Argentinian radio because I find it very interesting. They talk about whatever soccer games there are, and on top of that, they talk about politics. So since I'm an economist and I'm a libertarian activist, I kind of like that mixture. But it does tell you something about Argentina because that does not happen in other countries. When you go to Mexico and you listen to soccer commentators, never once they mention politics. In Argentina, it's just like blended into the whole discussion is just blended in. Okay, so in the talk shows, they would invite libertarians, and it was, I'm gonna make up something. Let's say there were like three people that were always there in those shows every single year. I'm not sorry, every single week, and they would invite, let's say, three people, one of those libertarians, for 3 hours. The three guys that are always there, just shouting at each other, blah, 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 for 3 hours. The libertarians would get 10 minutes max,
Mm,
uh, once or twice in those 3 hour period. Just imagine a libertarian sitting down for three
yeah.
hours, getting to talk. Milei sees that, goes, and he starts shouting louder than the others. And when people were complaining, he said, "Why do you always shout?" He said, "Well, because I was going to talk shows, I was not shouting, and I could never get my point across. When I started shouting, I was actually able to get my point across. So that's the only way you can do it on TV. You have very limited amount of time, and you need to
Yeah.
put in your you need to put in your point as soon as possible, because other than that, the other guys, and that's why he's so much against. Remember that he trashes the left really badly. He says you cannot give them an inch, and what, because he suffered through that on TV. As soon as he was a little bit nice, they would immediately take over completely the show.
Yeah.
When he was screaming and whatever, whatever, and then Agustin told me, said, "Yeah, that." And this is the interesting thing: when Millet started doing that, started shouting just to make sure he gets his point across, the TV ratings of those shows double and triple, even if they did not want to invite him because of his ideas. They had to invite him because the guys above were saying, "Dude, I don't know who that guy is, but our ratings triple, so you have to have him whether you like it or not." So he had to be
Yeah.
on TV against their will. That because he has the personality to do that. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
I don't know if that would happen like that in America. I mean, I do wonder if they'd say, well, our ratings went up, but we can't have this guy talking here. Get rid of him.
Yeah, yeah.
I really
It's
don't.
different. It's very
Yeah.
different. Oh, you know what it is? Believe it or
What?
not,
What?
low interest rates.
What?
Low interest rates
Oh,
provide when we had low
yeah.
interest rates. Low interest rates provide the incentive for companies to say, what the heck, we can have a little bit of losses at low interest rates, we can easily refinance. Now that we have high interest rates, almost all the nonsense, little by little, all the funding is going away, because they cannot, the companies cannot afford losses anymore right now, because is, okay, why are you putting money on something that is not giving you back, that is not giving you returns, when you could have your money on the bank or in a treasury security for 5% of doing nothing. So now companies have to be productive whether they like it or not, because then their bosses are saying, like, why do I even have you here? I could just put the money on the bank and get 5%. You have to produce more than 5%. So they can't do any more any of the nonsense that you and I would always complain about. They can't do it anymore. They have to focus on being productive right now, because the high interest rates provide a very high opportunity cost to their nonsense. And so that nonsense is going away little by little, but it's going away.
Yeah. I don't know also if maybe they've just got enough cash in their reserves and there's enough unanimity uh, because American media is so unbelievably corrupt. But as you're pointing out, though, we've gotten to this point in our political discourse, though, really where it's really getting to the point where nobody talks and everybody has to shout now, and it's not. I don't know if that's a positive thing, but also when there's so much noise out there, and everybody can start a podcast, everybody can write a book, everybody can write an article. It seems like maybe that's the only way to get the attention. I definitely be interesting to look up some of these videos and some of these talk shows where this happened, though. It's because he's really made the talk show circuit, and also he's good for, and also, though, he also mastered the art of these little short videos where you explain a lot
In very little.
in a short time, and he's gotten
That's
really good
amazing.
at that. Yeah, I mean,
That's hard. That is
yeah,
hard. I struggle to do
yeah,
that.
and yeah, this is the thing too, Aaron. I've been wondering about what after 8 years of presidency, he's going to be the most in demand libertarian speaker ever. Every
Yeah.
conference is going to want to invite him. I mean, and I mean, he could make so much money doing that, and especially if I don't know. I suppose he could have somebody write speeches for him in English, and he'd come to English speaking places. But because because they're going to want him because people up here are talking about him. I mean, yeah, he's going to have his pick of conferences and stuff to go to.
Huh. That
and
I
not,
expected.
yeah, and not to
I
mention
think for
also,
life he's doing good.
well,
He has
he'll
good
also get
investment.
invited to investors conferences and stuff like that. He's going to be it.
Yeah. His life is taken care of for the actually. He does not accept his salary. He raffles it, I think, away
Yes,
to his
this.
followers.
Yeah, I love this too. This is another thing he does. He creates a lottery for his salary. So this is how he's amassed all of these email addresses, so he can send. Now all these people. This is how he's built his email list by creating this raffle of his salary. It's so. Oh, that is so brilliant. Yeah, this is another. I mean, yeah, this is what we've heard. We know about the chainsaw and one of the Chase Oliver said he got somebody sent him a chainsaw chain. Chase is thinking like, okay, I got to take the chainsaw. I tell you, go with the hairdo, but also raffling off the salary. Yeah, that's another thing. Yeah,
it actually works. I think there was a Mexican politician that
yeah,
did something similar,
yeah,
and it did work. People like that. I mean, hey,
yeah.
that's what people want. That's what we respond to.
So is it like he gets paid like is it like there's a winner, like he maybe gets paid once a month and then there's a winner every month? So
As far as I understand, yes.
one winner gets his paycheck this month and then another winner. And I suppose once you've won it once, you're probably no longer eligible, but I don't know how you'd work that out. But yeah, that's absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, no, he's really in those kind of things. And then this is the funny thing: a lot of the Peronists were complaining, for example, saying something like, "Wait, if he raffles away, he gives away his salary, how come he can buy, and they start going through certain things that he bought lately." And then all of the Milei's followers were answering like, okay, we understand that you're a Peronist, so you don't understand that you can save money and live out of your investments if you know what you're doing. So you don't always need a salary from the state. Is it? The state is not the only place where you can earn money. I don't know if you knew that. It was just hilarious because they were like, how come he's, and I said, well, yeah, because he worked in the private sector, he made good money, so he doesn't have to depend upon how to say he just lives out of his savings. He doesn't have to depend upon the state salary, which is great.
Yeah, well, I suppose he's had some people who probably advised him, or maybe if maybe he's one of those few economists who's actually played the market and done well.
But it's not hard if you know what you're doing in Argentina. Things there's always going to be inflation. You
Yeah,
do want to put your money on real assets
yeah,
and stocks. So I think for someone like him, it wouldn't be hard for him to figure it out because that okay, there's going to be a lot of inflation anyway. So when you put
yeah,
your savings, obviously you're not going to put it on Argentinian pesos because they're garbage. So I'm sure he was. I know there's people that even save, not even in dollars, but they save in. I'm kidding you not, bricks.
mm-hmm.
They get money, they immediately go get bricks, they save them so that they can build their house or their kids house, or their kids house. And
Yeah,
if they're short on money after, I don't know, 2 or 3 months that they bought the bricks, well, they can sell the bricks at a higher price just because inflation is pushing all the prices, including bricks. So there's people that had to figure it out how to do that. I'm sure Milei was smart enough to put all he probably even has investments in dollars and things like that. So it shouldn't be hard. It shouldn't be hard at all that he figured it out long
yeah,
ago.
yeah. Put your money in dollars, or maybe he's even bought some Bitcoin too. We don't know.
I'm sure he has. There you go.
Yeah,
I'm sure he has.
yeah. I wonder if they'll try to invite him to the Bitcoin conference next year, but he's got to be.
I think he has been there before. He's a good friend of the conference. I mean, right now since he's a president, we can be asking him to go everywhere we want him to go. But
Yeah.
he's a good friend with
Oh,
everybody. I think it was
yeah.
Juan that was saying that he tries to always, at least right now it's almost impossible, right? But
Yeah.
in the last couple of years, he has been trying to work with people, even with to have interviews, even with small channels.
Yeah.
He will still try to actually make it to the Zoom or StreamYard meeting just to try to chit chat with people,
Yeah.
and that gained him a lot of followers, not just in mass but intense. People do appreciate that you go a little bit extra mile for the common man. People see that and that inspires them, and so his followers love him to death.
Yeah. I wonder if he'll ever discover this little podcast yet. I don't know if he has, but
As a president, I don't think so. I'm sorry. Before, I know he would. I know that he would, but right now as a president, it's impossible. Like it was something very nice that
oh yeah.
One kid was very happy that he went to after he won. He asked his dad from some city outside of Buenos Aires. I don't know exactly. Asked his dad, "Can you please take me to Buenos Aires? I wanna meet Milei." He said, "Well, it's gonna be hard. So let's just try to do it." And the kid got lucky enough that he was in a bus, and then Milei was passing on a car, and they were just shouting at him that how much he loved him. He's awesome, whatever, whatever. He wasn't supposed to, but he had to step out and then just how to say hello to them because he's just such a nice human being that he can't stop him. Whenever something similar in Spanish, we say, el amor con amor se paga. If you give him love, he will pay you back with love because he can't stop himself.
Yeah.
One of people make fun of his relationship with his dogs, but he tells me,
Yeah.
he said, "Do you understand how important was my dog in my worst moments? That's why I cloned the dog. I wanted more of him. He was there in the most. Of course, I'm gonna like.
Yeah.
I'm there with my sister. I have a good relationship because my sister has always been there with me in the most difficult times. Now that
Yeah.
tells you about an amazing human being, and people want to use it as, oh well, he talks to his
Yeah.
dog or whatever. Well, yeah, he's wild. What did you
Yeah.
expect him to do?
Yeah.
You know,
And
but he's
also,
a very nice human being.
let's also, Fatima also as well, Fatima Flores.
Fatima, yeah, Fatima Flores.
Yeah, yeah, and I have a feeling she's probably had some influence on his look. I bet.
Oh, okay, yeah,
Yeah,
that's true.
because
It
he's
could be.
definitely got a look. I don't know. There's some other people too. Yeah, I mean, yeah, he's
Do you know these stories about sometimes his opponents want to like make fun of him or something, and so when he got with the chainsaw kind of thing,
yeah,
some ladies, I don't remember what the name of the lady is, but these ones that supposedly if you criticize Milei on TV that was going to bring him down, and it did exactly the opposite. She was criticizing him for using the chainsaw. Don't ask me exactly what she said, but someone
yeah,
complaining on TV, it's normal, right? And then she said something. I don't know about cartoons, but there's one cartoon when there's this demon that kills other demons. Don't ask me what the names of those things are because I have no clue, right? But it's some kind of cartoon, and the demon, quote unquote, that kills other demons has literally a chainsaw in his head, like in his forehead. Okay,
yeah,
so she was saying, "Oh, he almost looks like this whatever cartoon, the chainsaw cartoon." And she thought that was gonna bring him down. Guess what the followers of Milei did?
yeah,
They went to get the little how to say the picture of the chainsaw demon or whatever of the cartoon, and
yeah,
they put him his wig, the wig of Milei, and now you have all these little animals. So every single time they attack him, they always use it as a way to actually give him even more promotion. Like they figured out like when people would make fun of, oh, he has like a hair like Goku or some of those cartoon characters. Instead of whining about it, they started using Goku and those characters to make memes in favor of Milei. And they started mixing things like Goku with some of the Bible verses that he quoted. One that was very interesting and it was super powerful was something like, "Oh, it's not the number of soldiers that gives you the victory, but the victory depends upon the forces that come from heaven." And then that phrase they mix it with Goku, how to say, cartoon characters and all that, and it was
yeah,
just a huge hit, like just amazing. When people were making fun of his hair, he would him and his followers would actually turn it around and turn it into a positive. So
yeah,
the whole campaign was just flawless, literally.
yeah,
Even the last one when he messed up, it helped him out, which was hilarious, by the
yeah.
way.
Yeah, that's a real. It's really, and he's really figured out how to use these things and turn them around to his advantage. It's really
And that made him win the youth. Just imagine the youth
yeah.
instead of being communist in Argentina. They're not communists, they're libertarians,
Yes,
they're following.
they
This is
lowered the
crazy.
voting age to 16 because they thought they'd all be socialists, and then that everything they've tried to throw against libertarians, they've turned around and used it against them. This is such. I mean, that's why I've done so many shows. We've got to learn as much as we can from this. It's
Yes, exactly.
the other thing too is it sounds like he's got a relatively new, and he's got this alliance, and I don't know what kind of obstacles do you think he might meet now that he's president. I mean, there's going to be people who certainly want to see him fail in the Congress, and he doesn't have a majority in the Congress, and he doesn't have
He
the
he does have to
Yeah.
he does have to, I forgot what the word is, but he does have to deal a lot with the right wingers. I
Yeah.
think with the right wingers, he should be okay to pass at least. I think the dollarization is going to take long, but for example, in order to get the
Yeah.
dollarization, he got, for example, people that look right now that look like they're not the best ones, let's say at economics, but they're the best ones at getting the dollarization. Like, you see what I'm saying? He's hiring people for very small jobs, not for general jobs. And so hopefully the fact that he's going with that, that he's choosing, okay, I have a specific task, I'm going to hire you for this task, not for everything, not for the things that you don't understand, but just for the specific things. If he continues to do that, I think it will be easy. Now, what we do know, and this is something that you, I don't know if you're probably familiar with this, but let's say in downtown Buenos Aires,
Yeah.
there's a street called 9 de Julio. And in that
Yeah.
one, there's always protests every single week. In Spanish, when in Argentina they call it los piquetes. Don't ask me why, like poking. Oh, we're gonna go poke. For them, poking means you're gonna go do a protest, like close the streets, complain about everything, whatever, whatever. And it's not just one movement, but like infinite amount of movements. It's just people complain. There's people that live off out of, like, their job is literally to to organize protests. That's their job.
Yeah.
Because
What?
even the government like those protests, by the way, just so you know that. Even
Well,
the
well,
Peronistas.
well, well, Castro started having people stir the pot back in the 1970s in some of these countries in South America, and it's been going on ever since, really.
Yeah, correct.
Castro and maybe Maduro is funding them as well out of Venezuela, and they're funding
I'll send you Gloria
these
Alvarez.
gangs. Yeah.
It's a very famous libertarian, and she's an
Yeah.
expert on that.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly, was
And
there was a meeting.
Gloria, do you think Gloria's pro Milei or not? She seems to be kind of, I don't know.
I would say she's not happy about it, but I haven't heard her how to say
Yeah.
discuss, because they were not happy that he said, openly said, that Laje beat her on the abortion debate. So I
Yeah.
know that she's not happy about that. But the rest of the stuff,
Yeah.
I would say she, and she's so far away from Argentina that she probably says, I don't care, because she's
Yeah.
living in
She's in
Mexico.
Guatemala. Yeah.
Yeah, and no, actually she moves to Mexico. She goes back and forth, but she actually
Okay.
moved to
Yeah.
Mexico City. So she had some influence in Mexican politics and also in Guatemalan politics. Now, I don't think she cares much about it because it's far away from her and whatever.
Yeah.
But I do know that she's an expert. I'll try to send you a video because it has the subtitles where she even explains it in English. The If I remember correctly, will be the meeting of Sao Paulo, where all the left wing regimes got
Yeah.
together and said, we're gonna help each other out.
Yeah.
Literally,
The
that's
Sao Paulo Forum. Yes.
and Maduro was the one really putting in the money because oil prices were through the roof, and
Yeah.
then he had the resources to, and then people just get used to it, like, which is kind of like the kind of what happened in Argentina. Literally it's a lifestyle to go complain and they give you some type of subsidy. I'm kidding you not.
Yeah.
They even call it the name of the welfare over there is called programa. I think it's called programas. I don't want to lie to
Yeah.
you, but something like that. And it says, "Oh, I'm in like three different programas or something like that," and all of them are welfare, and usually they kind of go together. The way they design it is not randomly. They literally design the welfare state to gain votes. Literally, that's what like what is Peronism? Is just designing the welfare state to win as much votes as possible. That's why it was amazing that Massa spent 2% of their GDP just for one election in like 1 month. The guy lost, which was great. But he has that kind of capacity to use taxpayers' money to spend like crazy on elections. That's what Peronism is. And
Yeah.
Milei beat them up so good. It was
Yeah.
amazing. It was wild. I did not expect that big difference.
Yeah. Yeah. And also some people pointed out, some of the symbolism in the Chilean protests in 2019 was also the same symbolism being used in the Black Lives Matter protests in 2020. So I really wonder how much these people are maybe interconnected in one way or another. It's when you see the same kind of
They're
symbols.
fairly influenced.
Yeah.
They are definitely influenced very
Yeah.
heavily. That I can tell you. I don't know how connected they are, but I'm
Yeah.
sure that they tend to be connected simply because they see themselves as, at least from the wealthier
Yeah.
countries, leftists on the wealthier countries would see themselves as kind of like semi saviors if they help
Yeah.
the poorer countries lefties. So I'm sure there's some type of influence, but the interesting thing about Argentina is that many times you don't even need it because the whole bureaucratic state
Mhm.
apparatus is designed to maintain the protest lifestyle. This is the interesting thing is
Yeah.
Black Lives Matter protest in
Yeah.
Argentina, in Buenos Aires, is a lifestyle. It's not even something that happened, for whatever event. If you and I complain about those, like in Argentina, it's in every week there's something going on. It's just crazy, crazy.
Yeah. How much do people in Argentina take an interest in foreign affairs? I mean,
At all,
do they
nothing.
they really don't
They don't
care at
care.
all what happens in Ukraine? I
They
mean,
cannot care.
they don't,
This
yeah,
is the problem.
because they
They
don't have enough.
cannot.
They don't have enough money to. They don't have. I mean, America can give away. America's gotten so rich that it can give away all this foreign aid,
I
and
completely agree.
because some libertarians have brought up some American libertarians have asked questions about this regarding
That's just wild questions.
yeah,
They totally don't understand the context of. Honestly, the only libertarians, if you ask me, and this is a little bit of strong position, okay?
yeah,
The only libertarians that should ever care, and I think I said it in a space, in a Twitter space with Bob Murphy, when people were asking this kind of question. The only libertarians that should care about foreign affairs, right? Foreign
foreign
affairs
affairs, yeah,
should be American libertarians. Why? Because the military industrial complex lives off my taxes, but
yeah,
the military industrial complex does not live
yeah,
off out of Mexican libertarian taxes. That's not any. That's If Milei would give priority to foreign affairs,
yeah,
it would give it any priority, it would immediately be given up on their people because there's just so many needs in Argentina and all Latin America
yeah,
that foreign affairs becomes, honestly, with all due respect,
yeah.
completely trivial. Completely
Well,
trivial.
you all probably don't have this, maybe have these large industries too. I mean, does Boeing have a place there? Does Lockheed Martin have a place there? You probably don't have these factories down there that we have in America. So
No, they don't.
there's no military lobby down there where there is here.
Not at all.
And there's one thing I've pointed out. It still kind of amazes me that South America does not have its own car company. There is no
Yeah.
South American, I mean, a car company that was started somewhere in South America.
No, I doubt
I
it.
mean, obviously people drive Toyotas and they drive Fords and other cars down there, but I
I
find
don't,
it
I don't know about Argentina. Argentina has some very low quality cars, and they told me
okay.
this.
Okay, maybe
I
yeah,
think it's because they have some of their own. How to say? If it's not,
yeah,
if it is not Argentinian by nature,
yeah.
they do tell the state says, oh, you can actually open shop here, but all your operations should be here. They cannot be outside. They're very mercantilist and nationalist when
Okay,
it comes to economics. So maybe you'll find a car company in Argentina, but only and exclusively because it will be the Peronistas wanted to push and subsidize car companies into existence. But when it comes to the division of labor, it makes no sense
well,
for
yeah,
Argentinians to build their own cars when Toyota and
yeah,
Ford
but
can do it for them. That they have so many other better things to do, like soccer, food. Like the amount of food they
oh yeah,
produce in per capita terms is crazy high. Like it's just
yeah,
wild.
yeah.
They're very productive. They don't need to worry about that kind of thing. You know what I mean?
I've heard that our food down there is a combination of like Texas barbecue and the best of Italy.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
mean,
I know.
literally, it's the best of Italian food. Maybe
Yeah,
we can
yeah.
have barbecued pizza. I don't know. It's a
Barbecue. No, I don't
yeah,
think they're gonna. They usually get after me because I do. I go to. I don't know if you've ever been to a place like this, Pyology, where they make a pizza, but they put whatever you
yeah,
want. And then I post it, and then my Argentinian friend said, "No, no, that's not a pizza. That's an open pie." They get very picky about, like, when it comes to
yeah,
food, they're super picky about those kind of things. But the quality is amazing. So I was there, and I was like, "This is great.
yeah.
I absolutely love it."
Does Millet have any other relationships with people like that I've compared him to? Like one person on here compared him to Guillermo Lasso in Ecuador. I know he got some congratulatory notes from Maria Corina Machado too. although she can't leave the country, so she won't be at the inauguration. But and so is any other, and certainly there was that letter that people like Vicente Fox and some other people signed and said, yes, this man needs to be elected so he can save Argentina. It
Yeah, no,
sounds
there's
like
no right away.
it also sounds like, as one person said, as Argentina goes, the rest of South America goes. Do they really look up to them that way? I mean, kind of follow their lead,
I
maybe.
in the conference, the one of the first things I told Argentinians, and I said, okay, guys, whatever you do, you guys were chosen by history. You guys did not choose it. We did not choose it. This is just the way things are, personality wise,
Mm,
whatever happens, good or bad in Argentina, spreads to the rest of Latin America within
yeah,
years. And
yeah,
directly told by Latin Americans, they're not Argentinians, but they're married to Argentinians, and they can see it on a daily basis how what they heard in Argentina within a couple of months is already
yeah,
being discussed in their countries. So they have a huge. That's why it's so big, because
yeah.
is Milei's personality. Obviously, that in itself, it's a worldwide personality, right?
You know,
But the fact that
does
it's Argentina is going to affect everything in Latin America for sure.
does Buenos Aires have a pretty big media presence? I mean, do they make a lot of Spanish speaking movies down there too, or?
That's a good. I don't think so. That's a good
Yeah,
question.
well, I mean, it's
They
a big
probably do
town.
have some, but not they're not
I
a
mean,
big industry
that's
that I know of.
one thing I've asked is, what is the Spanish speaking Hollywood? I mean, I know a lot of that stuff comes out of Miami now.
In the
You know,
ancient times, in the 50s and
you know,
40s, it was literally Mexico.
yeah,
uh
Mexico they definitely make a lot of movies in Mexico.
they,
And
they, they
also,
they used to make movies
you
like
know,
crazy. Then I'm not completely sure what happened, but United States became so powerful when it came to technology, like mainly special effects in the
yeah,
60s and 70s. If I'm correct, that will
yeah,
be Star Wars. Remember that Star Wars back
yeah,
in the 70s won
yeah,
the special effects. Then most Mexican uh, movie makers try to imitate the special effects, but without the budget. Just imagine how's that gonna work. So the quality of Mexican movies dropped like crazy from the 60s, 70s went down. Even the 80s collapsed completely. The 90s, there was a little bit of resurgence of very good movies. If you have the time to watch a movie, they're just kind of like weird, but I like them that way. Two movies that I would one movie that I would recommend is called Amores Perros, and with the subtitles you should be okay.
yeah.
Amores Perros. It's the type of movie that it's not really like,
Yeah.
how to say, for like
I
popular.
what yeah, I watched one movie. I watched one movie called Milk of Sorrow, and only because it was the only movie from Peru that ever got nominated for Best Foreign Film at the Oscars. Because
There
I
you go.
I really loved Peru at the time, and I really just and they were talking, and that movie actually talked about terrorism and the Shining Path, and it also talked about
That's true.
it also focused on some of the conflicts that still happen between the indigenous and the descendants of
Spanish.
Europeans in Peru, which
Yeah.
is still a big deal. Argentina doesn't really have much of an indigenous population, does it?
Very
I mean,
small. There was one or two
yeah,
soccer. The way you know it through soccer players.
yeah,
I know there was one or two soccer players that they're Argentinians, but they're local descendant of indigenous people.
yeah.
But you're talking about one among million. It's just
Oh, yeah,
Argentina. Argentina is, genetically speaking, is Spanish with a mix with Italian. That's what they
yeah,
are. Pretty
yeah,
much all of them. Maybe some immigrants from Bolivia and Paraguay came along, but in general, it's just a mixture between Spain.
yes,
Usually, we tend to make the joke that if you go to South Italy, it's no different than being in Argentina. Like personality wise, everything. You go to Napoli and you literally feel like you're in Argentina, in Buenos Aires or something like that.
yeah. Well, yeah, it's well, yeah, yeah. One thing else too, was the Latin American Bitcoin conference exclusively Bitcoin, or was it more kind of I saw, because I know a guy who's a big into Cardano was there.
Yeah, it's open to everything. Like usually,
Yeah.
um, maximal Bitcoin maximalism is not really big in Latin America. Simply, I
Okay.
think because this is kind of odd, and I have my theory why the United States is so crazy. We tend to make the jokes that in the United States and Argentina is a little bit like that. There's no middle ground ever.
Yeah.
One of my friends told me she moved to United States to learn English, like let's say her junior year in high school, just to learn English and then come back home to finish high school. her senior year in Mexico. What she would tell me is that she hated, for example, it's a little bit of, hopefully,
Yeah.
it's a sample, not really like a, nothing terribly serious. But she said that she didn't like the fact that it was, if she wanted to hang out with fun people, they were wild beyond belief in the United States.
Yeah.
And if you wanted to hang out with people that were a little bit more calm, a little more relaxed, or whatever, they were so conservative, so close-minded that it was incredibly boring. Is it, there was no in between, like literally just,
I can see that. Yeah.
for Latin Americans that's weird because we
Yeah.
usually, we have everything.
One thing I've often said, Orthodox Bitcoiners remind me a lot of Orthodox objectivists 30 years ago. It's almost
Yes.
the tone and attitude is almost exactly the same. I don't know, but every movement has a more orthodox wing and it has its more open wing.
Yes.
Like where there's an orthodox part and there's another part who wants it to be a big tent. Anyway, yeah. Well, Aaron, you got anything to say before we want to go? This has been a great conversation. I'm really
I'm glad
glad.
you liked it.
Yeah.
Sorry
Yeah.
that we went into
Yeah.
different topics, but
No,
relate
it's
easily
fine.
for that.
Also, what I should ask you too. What's going on with the border? I mean, I hear there's so much immigration derangement syndrome. Oh, all these immigrants are coming across the border. You're down there in McAllen. What are you seeing?
We don't have much of a problem. I mean, I think it's just
Yeah.
exaggerations on the part. The local population is perfectly okay with
Yeah.
immigration as long as it's orderly. Like
Yeah.
seriously, like 99% of people in the border we descend from immigrants. And I'm not talking about like the 1700s. We're talking about the
Yeah.
in the 80s. A bunch of people came in the 80s. So it's nowhere near as anti-immigration people want to make it out to be.
Yeah.
Now, it is a problem, and this is where it gets weird. Usually, most Mexicans, and I hope this makes sense to you, uh, do not mind at all immigration because people would just come from, let's say, Central America, cross through Mexico. Some
Mhm.
would stay and make a life
Mhm.
in Mexico. Some other ones would go all the way to the border, and they would just pass legally. I don't know, but people were like, yeah, sure. Sometimes you will give them a job. For example, it wouldn't be odd that you will hire them for a couple of weeks on their way towards the border. Now, the downside was that during the Trump administration, when they started becoming more strict about whatever, I don't remember exactly what was it, they had to stay in the Mexican border cities for
Yeah.
a long time, waiting for them to be, how to say,
Processed.
for the process and all that kind of stuff. What was the problem? Now the local population is affected because, for example, they finally clean it up, and so which means they got their immigration status solved, which is great. But for let's say 2 years in Reynosa, which is the city just across, for example, one of the parks, locals could not use it because migrants had to stay there because they had no other way to go, literally. So that's when the local populations that are not libertarian naturally, they're just regular
Yeah.
human beings. They would say like, well, yeah, usually I'm okay with immigration, but now immigration is and is perceived because it's now they're stuck in the border. It's not a flow that you just see a couple of people passing one day and the next week you say no, you have them all within a period of 2 years in the same place. Now they're saying that's mass immigration, and that is a problem because they're used like we're literally not able to use a lot of the public infrastructure because they have to use it. Now we do have a problem. I mean, I'm not saying that is like a big deal,
Yeah.
but you for the first time you will hear Mexicans saying, you know what, we need to be a little more cautious with immigration. Now,
Okay.
but what's the real problem is that it was because of the rules to say, no, no, you have to stay over there. You can't just come over here. And that made things a little more messy. But they're nowhere near what they want to say. Even Elon went to the
Oh yeah.
border. They're nowhere near. I think they're completely out of proportion. Now, obviously, they're going to look like a big deal for, let's say, if you are one of the border patrols in a specific area where a lot of them are passing, then you interpret as being the whole border is being attacked or something like that. Like the proportions that people analyze are like they're over. How to say?
Yeah.
They're I forget what the word is, but they're beyond proportion. Like what is really happening is much less of a problem. The issue is since they've been consciously or unconsciously pushing them to always cross through one point or get together in one specific
Yeah.
city, it makes them look like it's this mass thing going on and whatever.
Yeah.
When in
That's true. Yeah.
reality, it's not really.
There's Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks for clearing that up. I just wanted to. That was just one thing I wanted to cover before we left, since I haven't talked to anybody who's near there. Yeah. Where can we find you on the net?
For sure on Twitter. That's where I post
Yeah.
most of my stuff.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
will tell you guys to go to my blog, but my blog is a bunch of technical stuff, so like nobody,
Okay. Yeah.
don't worry about it.
Please.
So on Twitter,
Please.
Ááron Sepúlveda-C.
Yeah.
Find me there if you have any questions about economics or even political theory. Also, I'm also, I have expertise on libertarian
Oh
theory.
yes.
Happy to
Yeah.
answer in English or Spanish, whatever way you
Oh
want.
yes. Well, please like and please like the video, subscribe to the channel, follow the channel. Uh, go buy my novel Escape from the Village. Subscribe to my Substack, and thank you, Aaron. It's been great having you on here. I'm Chris Baker, and we're out.